Hello. We have the Disney grown-ups here, and AKA Jake Renfro. Is that how you're saying it, Renfro? Okay. Again, had a little bit of trouble getting on to the stream tonight for some reason. I'm still learning how to do this, but hopefully I'll get this figured out soon. When I'm looking over this way, it's because I'm looking at the screen, trying to see who's here. And hello, Cobra Roll. Big thanks to Craig for making the channel trailer that I just put up yesterday. He really does some good work with that kind of stuff. He's been helping a lot of us out with that, and really appreciate it. Yeah. So, what do I want to say? I must admit that I find this more nerve-wracking than actually performing on stage. I think it's because you never know what your audience really is. But we have a few people here, so let's see. Yeah, Disney Grown Ups, the trailer is awesome. Really does great stuff. So, I'm going to say that I'm probably going to take this live stream and then re-edit it to make best and worst of videos that are more condensed, and that I also can add visuals for like the different things that I'm talking about into that. So we're gonna see what kind of a conversation. I would be interested in hearing people's opinions too. I know that there's some people on the list that go to Disneyland Paris. I see Angie's World just checked in. Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, thank you. Good morning. It is morning here. Now, I want to start by saying everything that I say here tonight is my opinion. We went to Disneyland in March, and if I were to do it again, I probably would not go in March because it was quite cold weather, and so that was a little bit of a damper for me with that. Very windy. In fact, it's very funny, but the Disney grown-ups were just leaving Disneyland Paris when we were arriving. Of course, I didn't know who they were at the time, and they didn't know who I was at the time, but I thought it was quite funny that later I'm watching their video that they did from Disneyland Paris, and it's on the day that we got there. So funny how things work out that way. As Disney has told us, it's a small world. So let's see. Okay, so I'll go back to saying because of the weather, I was a little bit more grumpy than I might have been at Disney, and maybe that affected some of my opinions of the place as well. I'm used to going to Walt Disney World, where it is sunny and warm and rains at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a half hour, and then you go back out. So, but with that said, again, these are my opinions. Other people's opinions could be totally different. My opinions are based on the fact that I'm a Walt Disney World kind of guy. But with that said, let's start off with what I found to be the best of Disneyland Paris. Hi, Ty. Thanks for coming in. All right. I'll come back to the chat a little bit later. I'm going to talk for a while and look back. If you guys have any comments about Disneyland Paris, please put them in the chat. and I will come back and look at them. So I want to start off with the best of Disneyland Paris, because there was a lot that I liked about Disneyland Paris, a whole lot. I'm going to start off with some things that we don't have in the other parks. We don't have in Anaheim, we don't have in Walt Disney World. When I say the parks, I'm generally going to be talking about the parks in the States and Disneyland Paris. So the first thing that I really enjoyed was the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. And I would say that this is sort of a cross of medieval times and what is it called? Hoop-de-doo? I've never had a chance to do Hoop-de-doo in Orlando. But basically, this was a full dinner show. I think it lasted about an hour, maybe a little longer than an hour. But it was a dinner show. They had it set up where you were different colors and you were in different places according to your color. Just if you've been to medieval times, it was that same sort of a setup. You had your knight, we had our cowboy, and so they have the contest going on back and forth. The show was really good. It really kept your interest. Everything that they do in Paris, they do a mixture of English and French. So you can follow along with the storyline just fine with the mixture, the way that they do it. The food was really good. And the reason I say it was sort of like hoop-de-doo, is that what it is, hoop-de-doo in Orlando? Because they just kept the food coming. And they kept the drinks coming, and it just kept coming and kept coming. And also, if you have gluten-free issues, Anne has that, and they accommodated her with her gluten-free issues. So everything was very nice with that. I'm not going to belabor this one a lot more. I have on my channel a video that shows a pretty good portion of the show there. So if you want, you can go ahead and take a look at that. But I would highly recommend, if you go to Disneyland Paris, to go to the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. I would mention that the show is not actually in the park, but it's in Disney Village. So it's in the area where all the shopping is. Okay, that's number one. Number two was the Mickey and the Magician show. This is at Walt Disney Studios there in Paris, and this was really a fun show. Now, as a magician, I didn't find it to be the most magical magic show. I mean, you didn't go there and be amazed by the illusions that you were seeing. I don't think that they were that deceptive, if I can say it that way. But the show was actually very good. A good theme that ran through it, and it was just the lighting that they had there. I don't know what to really say about it, because other than it was a good Disney show. Mickey wants to be a magician, and Mickey gets into trouble like he always does, and at the end of the story, Mickey learns his lesson. This is something that I would like to see brought to to Walt Disney World, Mickey and the Magician. I don't see why they couldn't do that. Hopefully one day they'll do it. we were very lucky because for the longest time they were not doing the Mickey and the Magician show, and they just started doing it again shortly before we left, or before we got there, I should say. And so we were able to see it. So really happy with that. So number 2, the best of Disneyland Paris. Go see the Mickey and the Magician show, and as the fates would have it, I also have the complete Mickey and the Magician show on my channel, so you can see it. We had very bad seats. We were way in the back, but there's enough there that you can get an idea of what the show was about. Now, some of these things I talked with Anne about and asked her opinion. And one of the things that we really enjoyed, and I must say I enjoyed this more than I thought I was going to, was the character breakfast buffet that we went to. Boy, I forget the name of the place. Disney Grown-Ups, help me. It's the Garden. Help me with that one. But we went there before the park opened. Went in and had the buffet. They had Mickey Mouse, Donald. They had Mickey Mouse. They had Daisy Duck, I think it was, and then they had Tigger, Piglet, and there was one other. Tigger, Piglet. Anyway, they had these characters, and as fate would have it, I also have a video showing that, so you can actually see the interaction with the characters. This was the first time I did a character meal, and as an adult, I just tried to be playful and childish with it and to play along with everything there, and it was quite fun. And the food wasn't bad either. I was actually pretty happy with the buffet, and of course all you can eat buffet, and I remember these sausages that they have. There's nowhere in Europe have I found the sausages that we have in the US, you know, the spiced breakfast sausages. Nowhere have I found those in Europe. I wish I could, but the sausages that they had at the buffet there were very good. And I would add that this breakfast buffet that they had at the character breakfast, it was the same food that they had for the breakfast buffet at the resort hotel we were staying at, the Newport. And the food remained consistently good throughout the week. So really enjoyed that. So, like I said, that was our first time. All right, let's get into a couple attractions that I thought were the best. How are we doing on time? Okay. Okay, first off, and we didn't do this until our last hours there, was Pirates of the Caribbean. And as much as I hate to admit this, I liked the Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland Paris better than at Walt Disney World. For one thing, Walt Disney World, the ride lasts 8 minutes and 30 seconds, and at Disneyland Paris, you get another 2 minutes, 10 minutes and 30 seconds. And I am not positive about this, but it seems to me like there's an extra drop in the one at Disneyland Paris. But the feel of going through there was very nice. I was hoping that they still had the redhead, but they don't. But very nice, and I really like that. Again, on my channel there is a video that you can see us going through the Pirates of the Caribbean as well. And that was at Disneyland Park. Okay, the next one, I kind of want to save that. I'm gonna go to this one. This one I liked because we don't have it in the States. I don't think it's at Anaheim, but they had Alice's Curious Labyrinth, and it was really just a walk-through attraction. A lot of different figures and so forth, and you really can't get lost in this labyrinth because, well, number one, it's Disney and they need to move people through this thing. But very nice going through the area, seeing all the figures, and then at the end, you actually go up into a tower, and you're able to get a very nice view of the park from up in that tower. And as fate would have it, on my channel, there is a video that you can watch going through the whole labyrinth and the views from that tower. All right. I'm going to go, okay, now I'm going to go to Walt Disney Studios again because Disneyland Paris has Ratatouille. Wow. What a ride that was. We actually did that twice. It's coming to Epcot, to the French Pavilion in Epcot, and boy, what a great addition that is going to make to the World Showcase in Orlando. But it's you wear 3D glasses. It's a dark ride. But basically you're shrunk down to the size of a rat and you go through this kitchen and all through this area and go through all of this mayhem. But what a wonderful, wonderful ride. The mixture of sensory with, for instance, there's a place where you go under a stove and you actually feel the heat of the stove while you're under there. You get sprayed with water when there's water spraying and stuff like that. Sort of like a Bug's Life, except that you're moving as you go through all of this. So Ratatouille, really, really love that, and really glad that that's coming to Orlando. Let's see. I have two more on the list here for my best of, and the next one I'm going to say is Space Mountain. Now, Space Mountain for Disneyland Paris is called Hyperspace Mountain. And all of those things that you complain about on Space Mountain at Anaheim and Orlando, you're not going to complain about that in Disneyland Paris. But with that said, it's really a completely different ride. In Disneyland Paris, it's not Space Mountain, it's Hyperspace Mountain. And I'm not sure if they still have it. While we were there, they were on the last days of the Legends of the Force Star Wars theme that was going on there. The day after we left, they were switching over to the Marvel theme. So going through that with the Star Wars overlay was absolutely brilliant. I just love that. And the thing about Disneyland Paris is that this is a roller coaster that has a loop, at least one loop, and I think one or two corkscrews. Of course, it's in the dark, just like Space Mountain. And but what a great ride that was. I wish I had had a chance to do that more than once, but I ended up closing the park one night with that. Well, actually, we closed it with Star Tours, which we had done again. So it went from there straight to Star Tours. But wow, so much fun. If you ever go to Disneyland Paris, do not miss Hyperspace Mountain. Do not miss it. Okay, so that's going to bring me, I have 8 things listed here for the best of Disneyland Paris. And the last one was one that my wife wanted me to include on the list. And that was Disney Village and Main Street shopping. I don't know how many hours we spent inside of stores just looking around at all the things that they had there. Um, you can get lost in those stores, and the stores are themed themselves, you know, just like in Orlando. But she wanted me to show a couple of the things that we got there. Uh, these are things that she uses just about every day. And I'll show this, and I hope you can see that all right. But a Disney cup, and that's Minnie Mouse there. Hopefully that is clear enough there. All right. And a bowl. This was a set, and that has a little Parisian Minnie Mouse inside there. Yeah. Okay. And a little platter. So she uses this every day for her breakfast and fruit and whatever. But yeah, so those are her prize possessions that she got from there. I got this jacket that I'm wearing, 92, which was the year that Disneyland Park opened, of course. And then I also got a couple pins here, R and Z, for my name. So I have my own, what are these called? College jacket, high school jacket. But I like the look of this, so I got this. And I'm a big Tinkerbell fan. And so one of the things that I really was trying to find when I went there was a Tinkerbell. Looked all over the place, finally settled on this one. And kind of cute. But yeah, so that's Tinkerbell. But my prize possession that I got, and do not drop this, that I got while I was there was is this. And in the Norman Rockwell style, and it's Mickey Mouse painting his own portrait, and hopefully you can see there that that's Walt Disney that he is drawing for that. Very, very beautiful piece. This is my very favorite piece that I own that's Disney related right there. So, all right, so that leaves me with the best. I think I'm going to look at some of the comments and see if anyone here has anything said. If you can give me a minute. Plaza Gardens, thank you. Plaza Gardens, that's where we had the character breakfast. Thank you, Disney grown-ups. There was no Roo, no Winnie, no Rabbit. Oh, it was Scrooge McDuck. That's who the other one was. It was Tigger, it was Piglet, Scrooge McDuck, Mickey, and Daisy Duck. Pretty sure that's who it was. It's been a couple months now and I don't actually remember. 2 drops at the Disneyland Anaheim. You're talking, that's Disabled Disney. I think you're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, right? And also, I don't think, did I mention it? Disneyland California, from what I've heard, has the rides 15 minutes and 30 minutes long. Pirates of the Caribbean. So that's still the best as far as I'm guessing. I've never been on it, but I've heard a lot of people say that the one at Anaheim is the best Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay. Just trying to see some of these things. I don't see any real questions, so I guess Angie hates roller coasters. Cobra Roll, yeah, how can anyone hate roller coasters? True. Love the cup, yeah. I don't know if you see that from the, oh, maybe you meant my wife's cup, but here's the cup I'm drinking my tea out of tonight. This one we actually got in Nice. When, no, we got this in Barcelona at the Disney store in Barcelona. So, yeah. That's how I have my tea in the morning, out of a Disney cup. Okay. Oh, Riku, nice to see you. Yeah, I remember you. No, yeah, sure. Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, Riku's mentioning Don Rosa. I think I may have mentioned this before, but in Finland, Donald Duck is really the character of choice for Finland. And there's a comic book that comes out every week. Actually, there's like 2 comic books that come out every week. Anne gets it every week, 2 issues of that. So yeah. All right. Thanks, Angie. That's nice of you to say. Let's see. Difference between the 2 Space Mountain rides. The one in the U.S. is made by... Oh, okay. See, that's where you're smarter than me when it comes to roller coasters. I just ride them. All right. So, are you ready to hear what I think are the worst things about Disneyland Paris? Let's start that. First off, I'm going to say that I think I had a misconception going to Disneyland Paris. When I got there, it wasn't what I expected it to be. I have been going, like I said before, to Walt Disney World in Orlando. That's my park. I haven't been there a lot, only a few times, but that's the park I know and the park I love. And so I was sort of expecting that same feeling there. And I've got to be honest, I really didn't feel it. Now, I'm going to say something probably very controversial right now, but please bear with me, because when I get to the end of this, I'm going to come full circle and talk about this on a more upbeat frame of mind. But I literally walked away from Disneyland Paris with this phrase in my head, and that is, Disneyland Paris is Walt Disney's bastard child, left alone, unloved, and uncared for. That's how I felt, okay? Now, stick with me, because we're going to talk about some of this stuff, and we're going to find out that what I felt is not true. It was true. It's not as true anymore. A couple months ago, I did a poll on my Twitter account where I asked, I'm going to read this. I have a question for Disneyland Paris people. Disneyland California is considered a locals park. Would you consider Disneyland Paris to be a locals park? So that was my question. And there weren't a lot of votes on this. I didn't have as many followers at the time, but I did get 41 votes on this. 41% of the people said that it's a French park, that it's a local park. 59% said no, it's an EU park. In the comments that were made on this thread, there was one fella, I don't know if he's here with us tonight or not, But wow, harsh. The Disney grown-ups. I'm going to take back some of the harshness a little bit a little bit later. But yeah, I really didn't have the same feeling at Disneyland Paris that I have at Walt Disney World. I'm just going to be honest. I just did not. Yeah. Okay. I had someone make a comment that guests believe Disneyland Paris to be a EU park. The cast members feel that Disneyland Paris is a EU park, but this particular fellow said that the management doesn't think that it's an EU park, that they still run it as a French park. So yeah, Disney Office, I know you love Disney Paris. I know. That's why I said come, so that you can disagree with me at the end if you still want to disagree with me. But you might at the end find out that you don't actually disagree with me. Okay, so let's get into this. The number one thing that bothered me the most about Disneyland Paris was the cast members interaction. Again, this was my experience. That doesn't mean this is your experience. This was my experience. But the only time that we had, Anne and me both, the only time that we had good cast member interactions was when the cast members were not French. Make of that what you will. There were cast members from other countries. Boy, they were very friendly, very nice. But it was like the French people were just like, their lack of knowledge of stuff was... I had people in line answer the question for me because the cast member didn't know. Okay? Again, this goes to inability to communicate. The English skills weren't there. And that's fine if it's a local park. If it's a local park, that's fine. I shouldn't expect it. But if it's an EU park, then you have people coming from all through the EU, and the common language that is used is English. And so if they're not able to interact well, okay, again, these were my experiences. Boy, there was something that I wanted to say with this, and it's straight out of my head. If I think of what it is, I'll come back to it. I will say that the cast member experiences at the hotel were different than the cast member experiences in the park. At the hotel, the cast members remembered me. They would say hi, going to, from this and that. But from the very beginning, those cast members in the hotel, that's what it was I wanted to say. The hotel cast members, French, fine. They were fine. But in the park I had issues. Okay, let's leave that one. And let's go to, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to guess this is my own pet peeve, because I know in the U.S., people hate the Orlando fast pass system. For me, and with the way that Anne does things, she's not a morning person. And they are using the paper passes like they were, are they still using the paper passes in Anaheim? But they're still using the paper passes in Disneyland Paris, which means that you have to get to the park, you have to get there early, You have to go to the attractions that you want to go on. You have to get a paper pass, and then you have to come back at the time that the pass has been issued for you. So you don't have any of the choice that you have with the app, like you have for Walt Disney World. And this is for 2 parks. Now the parks are right next to each other, but you have to get your fast passes park to park. So Anne is not a morning person. There is no way Anne is going to be there for rope drop. Me, I would be there for rope drop. But if you're not there for rope drop, you're probably not going to get what you want, especially depending on how busy things are. We ended up getting this little piece of paper, and I don't know how much you can read of this, okay, but I'll read off what this is. This is the Ultimate Fast Pass, and the Ultimate Fast Pass is 150 euros per person, and it's very limited what that 150 euros is going to give you. I'll read off what you have. Now these are between 2 parks. Ratatouille, the Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, which is no more, Big Thunder Mountain, Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain, and Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, but it's in French here. I'm not going to try to read the French. Peter Pan's Flight, Buzz Lightyear, Laser Blast, and Star Tours. That's what that 150 buys you for one day. So, if you really want to get onto everything and really do the park, then you're going to want to get this. The question is it worth 150 euros per person for you to get on this many attractions? And we didn't even go on all of these attractions that are here because we didn't have the time for one day. Boy, this is a little out of place, but before we went, I was asking on some groups how long you need to be at Disneyland Paris. I had people tell me, oh, you can do both parks in one day. What kind of craziness is that? Both parks in one day. We were there for 5 days and we didn't do everything. So these people that say you can do both parks in one day are basically walking through the park. There's plenty to do. There's stuff there we didn't get to do that I would like to go back and do. So if I hated Disneyland Paris, which I don't, I wouldn't want to go back to do these things. It's just that these were things that I was not comfortable with there. Okay. The next one I'm going to say may have just been an issue of timing. And that was cleanliness of the park. And I say that because at the time they were having the yellow vest protests going on there. And so that might have had some influence. When I say there, I mean in France. So that may have had some influence on that. I had seen some photographs like a week after we got back of just garbage all over the ground there. I didn't see that, luckily. But, so that's all I'm going to say on that. Overall, I guess I already said this, but overall the park just lacked the magic of Walt Disney World for me. The theming, the attractions, everything was there, but I didn't have those cast member interactions that I have in Walt Disney World that made me love Walt Disney World. It just, that's it. But here is my biggest grievance. My biggest grievance. The worst thing about Disneyland Paris. No Mickey waffles. I was so disappointed. No Mickey waffles. How can you have no Mickey waffles? Now someone, if they have Mickey waffles there, tell me. They didn't have them at the breakfast buffets, not on any other days. They had other things, other confectionaries at the parks, but no Mickey waffles. How can you not have Mickey waffles? I don't know. But maybe that will change too. Okay, so if you look at my list, there was way more that I liked about Disneyland Paris than what I didn't like. But the things that I didn't like were things that make me go, maybe I'll wait 5 or 10 years before I go again. And the reason for that is this. And if it hasn't been mentioned in the comments yet, here's where everything changes. A lot of the attractions were under renovation when we were there. That's fine. I'm not, you can't do anything about that. So I did a little bit of study and history on Disneyland Paris and found out that the park really has been a lot of trouble for the last, since it opened. Economic problems in Europe caused problems, and it got to the point that Disney, the Disney company, stepped in. And I guess it happened in, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but in 2018, Disney basically has taken over Disneyland Paris. And Disneyland Paris is now having money pumped into it. If I see, let's see. This is an article from February 2018. And at the time, this newspaper article says they're putting $2.4 billion into Disneyland Paris. So, Disneyland Paris is on the mend. And there's actually someone that I've talked to. I don't know if they're still here or not, but they told me that years ago they were treated differently than how they're treated now, and that years ago the park wasn't the same thing that it is now. So I think in another 5 years, another 10 years, I want to go back to Disneyland Paris because I think it is going to have those missing elements that I didn't find this time around. Disney Growing Up says, yes, in the last 2 years, things have definitely started to change. And Walt Disney Company is now they're the major shareholder, and things have changed for sure. So there you have it. And that's really what it comes down to. The parks, I think, were mismanaged. I think that Disney is going to come in and actually make it an EU park instead of just a Disney, instead of just a local French park. When it opened as Euro Disney. It opened as a park for Europe. And that's where I come from on this whole thing. I think if I had gone to the park understanding that it has more of a locals park attitude, I think that I would have said, oh yeah, okay, sure. But I was going here that this was made for everybody. And I think it's getting there. It's moving in that direction. Personally, I don't think it's there yet. Here's one thing for the cast members. And someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's my understanding that in the States at the parks, a cast member is not allowed to say, I don't know. They have to get an answer for you, take you to get an answer, or point you in the direction to get an answer. Disneyland Paris, the number of times I heard, I don't know, I think that was really part of the issue for me there. So, anyway, that brings me to the end of my little rant of the best and the worst of Disneyland Paris. And I want to go back here and see in the comments. If someone had written someone in the comments, yeah, Angie, I see, is written here that she's heard that the French are a rude type, very snobbish towards Americans. Yeah, they do have that, what's the word I want to use? That's the way people think of them. But I think that is misplaced for a Disney park. I don't think that you can do that in a Disney park. And I've heard people say, I've heard people that have gone, Americans that have gone to Disneyland Paris, come back and say, yeah, but they're French. Like that's an excuse. You're in a park, you're spending a lot of money. I don't think that they should be rude to you. That's just the way I think about it. And I'm really hoping that part of this $2.4 billion that Disney is pumping into the parks, that they're going to use that on training the cast members in order to make it a better experience for people. Okay. All right. Yeah, if you don't want to wait in lines and you're not going to get there at rope drop, I think the pass, the ultimate pass, is really the way to go, but quite expensive. Quite expensive. Yeah, no Mickey waffles. That was now. I'm leaving that to last because it's sort of a joke and yet not a joke, because when I went there I was like, oh, Mickey waffles, I'm gonna get Mickey waffles, and they didn't have Mickey waffles. So yeah, no Mickey waffles. Okay, so that's my rant for the worst. I hope you understand where I come from, and like I said, this was my experience. That doesn't mean that it's your experience. I wonder, are British tourists treated differently than American tourists? I don't know. It's just one of those things. But even with everything that I said, I still would want to go back to Disneyland Paris. Still would do it again. But I want to wait a few years and after Disney has put all this money into it. Like the new, what do they call it? Phantom Manor? Is that what they call it in Disneyland Paris? Boy, I wish that had been open. Boy, I saw a point of view video on that a couple months ago, shortly after it opened. Looks amazing. Looks amazing. Would have really loved to have done that. Okay. Disney Buffin says that English are by far the rudest people in Paris. All right. So, are you the reason why they're rude to English speakers then? Okay. Does anyone have any comment that they want to put in the chat? English are treated differently. I think maybe it's just that us English realize that the French don't really like us anyway. Okay. Is this stereotype or is it true? That's the word I was searching for before, stereotype, that the French are rude and so forth. But anyway, snobbish. Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? We're coming up at the end of the hour here. tell you, when we were in Nice, the hotel that we were staying at in Nice, everybody there was so polite and kind to us. The well, there was the woman that did the maid service, and every day I would walk by and she would speak French to me, and I would say something in my very bad high school French, and she would say, "Monsieur, your French is very, very bad." Every morning, every time she saw me. But they were very friendly. They joked around. The experience in Nice was different than what I had at Disneyland Paris. So, anyway. I think that it has to do with the training, and that's why I say I really hope that that Disney is going to take the time to retrain cast members for a international audience. Yeah. I don't know when you got here, Disney Buffins, but I went through a list at the beginning of this of my best of Disneyland Paris, and there are several of the rides that I thought are better than Walt Disney World. Hyperspace Mountain, of course, although I have to give the caveat that that's really its own ride. It really doesn't compare to Space Mountain in the U.S. It's just exceptional. Pirates of the Caribbean, I thought was better than Walt Disney World. I haven't been to the one in Anaheim. I think Anaheim is probably the best out of all of them. And one thing that I didn't mention, but I think that I think It's a Small World is probably better at Disneyland Paris as well. I could be wrong because of my memory, but it just seemed to me that there was a lot more packed into It's a Small World at Disneyland Paris than in Walt Disney World. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I would say that we can, if there's no questions from anyone here, let me see. If you had to choose one Disney park to go to for the rest of your life right now, which would you choose, Paris or Walt Disney World? There's no question. I don't even have to think about it. Walt Disney World is the place. I mean, come on. You have Animal Kingdom. You have Epcot. Magic Kingdom. You have the water parks. I'm leaving something out. There's just so much more. Hollywood Studios. And then with Galaxy's Edge opening up. It's unfair to compare the two, if I'm going to be completely honest. Walt Disney World is its own beast. The other places are not as big. And, Disney Grown-Ups just put here, obviously Walt Disney World is so much bigger. Yeah, I mean, it's its own beast. So its own animal. So, yeah. You have to treat them as totally separate. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's why I said that at the beginning of my rant on the worst, is that if I had more information, more knowledge about what Disneyland Paris was, I probably wouldn't have had these same opinions walking out. So, now, we'll end with this. I started off by saying that my feeling was that Walt Disney Paris, let me just read exactly how I put this. Walt Disney's bastard child, left alone, unloved, and uncared for. And what I'm so happy to be able to say now is that's no longer the case. Disney, the Disney Corporation has taken over, They're starting to put money into the place. They're starting to give it the love that it needs. And I really think it's going to be an exceptional park within the next 5 to 10 years. Exceptional. And I have a feeling that the next time I go, I won't have these negative feelings that I had this time. And again, I'll say, it was cold. I don't do well in cold. I want to move to Florida to get away from cold. And we went in March. We were hoping that the March weather was going to be warmer than it was. I had looked at seasonal charts of what the temperature should be at that time of year, and they weren't this year. They were colder, it was rainy, it was windy. The sun came out the last day we were there, which seems to be the way that sort of works. So, okay, well, if there's no other questions, yeah, Disney grown-ups said it was bloody cold, and they know because they were leaving just as we were getting there, and the weather didn't change from the weather that they were describing on their videos or in their videos. So, okay. Yeah, I live in Finland. Yeah, I don't want to live in Finland. I want to live not in Finland. One of the reasons, cold. Second reason, no sun during the winter months. You have 3 o'clock sunsets, 2:30 sunsets. Okay, so let's close this off. Why don't we close with a piece of magic? And let's see. We're going to try a piece of magic using some coins. And we're going to try to do this very slowly. That's the first coin right there. And just a rub and a blow, and the first coin completely disappears, just leaving 2 coins. If we can do it with one, we should be able to do it with a second one. And that is the second coin disappeared, leaving just 1 coin with a snap and a rub, and the last coin completely disappeared. And with that, I will wish you what I always say: find the magic wherever you are. Thank you very much for stopping in. If you had fun, click that like button. If you didn't get to watch the whole thing, go back and watch the replay when it's available. Thank you very much to everyone that stopped by. And we'll do this again next Wednesday, and we'll have a whole new topic. Thank you, everyone. Good night.